Alright, what's up everybody and welcome back to the Alpha Obeisance channel. This is episode 8 of a Noob's Guide to Hyprland. It's my attempt to bridge the gap between power users and everyday end users like myself, or more particularly my son, who has taken an interest into Hyprland after seeing that I had been working on it and developing my own desktop experience. And it's my hope that I can provide you guys with an absolutely easy way to approach Hyprland. If you've gone and seen the documentation, you can tell it's obviously written with a lot of assumptions that you know what you're doing, and it's my hope to make this guide so easy that really anyone with a basic understanding of Linux can follow along. And step by step, I break down each configuration and show you what they do, explain what they do as best I can with the current knowledge that I have. And by the end of this, you should be able to either adapt my current build. You can download that in the link description below with my dot files. If you choose to do that, I recommend starting at the beginning because I'll teach you how to update my configuration so that it's functional on your hardware with your display and so forth. But I just do my best to make it the easiest Hyprland guide out there. So, without any further ado, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, don't hesitate to drop a comment in the section below, and I'll do my best to address every comment that I can. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get into this. I'm going to go ahead and dive into Z-Editor, where we're going to address aesthetics. The Noob note on this is that this section defines how your windows look and behave on the screen. It covers window layouts, spacing, borders, animations, and more, allowing you to customize your desktop experience for both appearance and functionality. Tip: play around with the gaps, borders, and layout to make your desktop look and work the way you want. Enable animations for smoother window transitions. For more information, check out the wiki. Here at the beginning, we've got general settings. This is also just default settings. If you choose not to make any workspace specific settings, these are the settings that will be applied by default. So I'm not going to be able to show you the gaps right now and how that affects your workspace, but if you hang in there with me, I will show you visually what this does, because I have a configured setup per workspace. So it won't do a whole lot of difference if I change these values right now. So gaps in and out, I can explain to you what those are. It's pretty self-explanatory. You have gaps at the top, bottom, left, and right of your screen, and those are your outer gaps. And then any gaps inside and between windows, those are your inner gaps. Next, we've got our border size. You can see I've got mine set to 1 pixel wide. I like mine kind of subtle and sleek. If I go ahead and bump that to 10, you're going to see a rather significant difference when I hit Control S to save. Because Hyprland is a dynamic tiling window manager, any changes you make here are applied immediately. So when I Control S, boom, there we've got a 10 pixel wide border around our windows. And you can get pretty crazy with this too. Let's say you like big fluffy cloudy cotton ball-y borders. You can go ahead and set it something crazy like 75, and when you save that, there you go, you got some big marshmallowy borders right there for you. So I'm going to go ahead and set it back to 10 so that we can get away from some excess there. I want to leave them at 10 for now though, because the border colors, you can see that I have a greenish khaki. I'm colorblind, don't judge me. Color for my borders, and you can see that the border on the left is bright and the borders on the right are dark, and those are because those are my inactive windows. We define those with color active border as well as color inactive border. These are RGBA colors, so you can Google your favorite RGBA color. Or say you wanted blue, you would search RGBA blue and pick your favorite hue and all of that stuff. Replace this right here, and you're going to be able to change the border color of these windows. And the same goes for here if you want to get really creative. So that determines your highlighted active window, and it's just a good visual indicator of what your active window is currently at. I'm going to go ahead and set this back to 1 and dive down here to resize on border. So in this case, allow resizing windows by dragging their borders. So if we put this terminal into floating mode, you can see I can move it around by holding the super key and dragging with the left click, but if I right click on any given corner, it will allow me to resize. Keep in mind, whatever point of origin you right click on is going to be the point at which you resize. So it works essentially just like it would on a normal desktop. You just can't click it and drag it, and I really like that. I don't like accidentally clicking my border and dragging it halfway across the screen. So I really like that functionality. Let's see here. Resize allow tearing. I've got it set to false. Disable screen tearing during window resizing and movements. This just gives it a much more fluid animation when you're resizing. You're not going to see any jagged stuff as you do that. So the master layout, I've got it set to master currently. So that means when I open up new windows, they all stack on the right hand side. And these are what we call slaves. And this is what we call the master. So if I go ahead and close these and I set this to dwindle, which is the other layout, dwindle. Now, if I open Windows, it's going to split the screen. It's going to split the screen. It's going to continue to split the screen smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. It's going to dwindle into nothingness. I don't personally like this, but I'm sure there are people that do. I wanted to show that to you in case you wanted to experiment to see which layout best suited you. I'm going to set mine back to master and save that. Next, we've got the actual configuration of the said master layouts, whether it's master layout or dwindle layout. Allow small split true. Allow small splits for additional master windows, true or false. Special scale factor. Define the scale factor for special workspace windows. And special workspace, I do believe I've covered this once already, but this is the special workspace. I got a comment here from a One Life Pillow that I had actually made a video previously because I needed a break from these guides. Fact, define the master window's size as a percentage of the screen. So when I open up a new window, you can see that the master window takes up just a little over half of my screen, and that's because I've got it set to 0.5. If I set this to something like 0.75, I haven't tried this, but theoretically, it should take up 75% of my screen, and it did not. I'm not sure why, so my understanding of this is probably broken. But I digress. I'm going to set it back to 0.55 just in case. If anyone knows why that didn't work, feel free to educate me down below. New status, slave. So when I open up a new window, you can see they open up on the right and they stack vertically. That is the slave functionality. If I close this and I set this to master and save it, now, when I open up windows, they're going to take over the master window. So you're going to see they're opening on the left-hand side, and then everything else is stacking sequentially on the right-hand side. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. Now that you know how that works, I'm going to set this back to slave because that's my preference, slave. And new on top, place new windows on top of the stack, as well as new on active to find window placement relative to the focused window. Orientation is right. I have not played with this either. I think last time I tried this, it didn't actually work. So it's supposed to set the orientation of the master area via left, right, top, or bottom, or center. I might have a configuration elsewhere that actually renders this ineffective. I'm not sure, but it was kind of like that last one I tried and it didn't work. I believe this is one setting that didn't work for me either. So inherit full screen equals true. Enable inheritance of full screen status during Windows snaps, true or false. Always center master, true or false. Keep the master window centered when orientation is set to center. Now, it's my understanding that this would make the window appear to be more or less something like this. And I'm not sure if that's the case, because if that were the case, it wouldn't work with your master layout, because where is it going to put the windows? Is it going to divide them evenly on the left and the right? I don't understand. So honestly, I can't, like I said in the beginning of this guide, I can't answer all of the questions. I'm still learning myself. There's still so much I have to learn, but hopefully this will at least get your foot in the door and make it a lot less intimidating to experiment and explore Hyprland on your own. Next, we've got smart resizing equals true. Enable smart resizing based on the mouse position. We've also got drop at cursor equals true. Enable drag and drop window placement. So if we got multiple windows here, and I put this back into our stack and master window. So now when I hold the super key and I left click on my window, if I drag it over here, it's going to take that. So it's dropping it in the position of my mouse. So that's what that function does there. Scrolling down to the dwindle layout, I don't personally know anything about dwindle, to be honest with you, but you do have the pseudo tile equals true, which enables pseudo tiling for windows in dwindle layout. If anyone wants to explain what pseudo tiling is, I would appreciate it, because if I recall, The wiki didn't really explain it. I might be wrong. I might have just read it when I was too damn tired. So I digress. Preserve split equals true. Preserve window splits when a window is closed, true or false. Next, we're moving on to workspaces, workspace specific appearance settings. So previously I told you up here in the default settings, if I change these, you guys would not be able to see them. Well, now you can, and I'm going to go ahead and open a few windows so that I can demonstrate the difference between window gaps. We are currently on workspace, workspace 2. So I'm going to go ahead and double the inner gaps on this, and when I save it, you're going to notice immediately that my gaps get larger, and we can do something super crazy here. If we do, we'll just do 100. So if I save, you see that these are really drastic inner gaps. So this is how I adjust my gaps based on a workspace basis. It allows me to more or less configure a workspace for a specific purpose, whether it's focus. I want big gaps between my windows, that I'm just focused on one window with less distraction on the edges. Maybe I want thinner gaps because I've got a lot going on and I want to cram as much as I possibly can. Then I would drop it down to something like, say, 5 or 2 or 1 or 0, even, like no gaps whatsoever. So whatever your preference is there, you would just adjust this and call it good. Now, don't forget, you do want to set a default up at the top so that you have something in case you choose not to modify all 10 billion virtual workspaces that you've got access to. Next, we've got animations. I'm not going to be able to do a whole lot of elaboration or explanation on this because I have not yet dipped my toes into playing with this configuration. So I'm going to kind of graze over this, and then I'll probably revisit it at a later time and append a new video to this playlist if I get around to it. So, yeah, just read the notation here, the documentation on the notes at the end. That'll explain what they do. Set ease out quint. Curve for smoother animations, ease out quint curve for animations, a linear curve, almost linear, quick animation. These are just different curves. I think this is, I've been working on this all day. Most of you guys have probably been watching my clock throughout each of these videos. So I'm a little tired. I'm not honestly sure how to explain any of this at this point. So I do apologize. I just don't have enough experience to feel confident guiding you guys on that. But I did give you general descriptions of what each function does based on what I was able to find on the wiki. So decoration settings, this one's going to be fun because this is where we can adjust our rounding. If you take a look at my corners, you'll see they've got nice little round nubby corners, and if I want to set that to say something a little more aggressive like 35, when I save that, it gives it a nice round edge at the end. And you can get rather crazy with this, but I can promise you it's going to break this. It's not going to break the system, it's just going to make it really awkward to look at. And a good example, I'm going to set it to like 150 and save, and now you can see that it's covering up the menu at the top. So if you get too crazy, you're going to start covering up actual UI elements of your windows, and while they'll still function, you're just not going to be able to see what you're clicking at. So don't get too aggressive with this. Try to stay tasteful unless you're some UI guru and you want to go modifying the user interface of every application you've got on your system. I'd probably advise to staying under, say, I don't know, 45. See what that looks like. Yeah, I'd probably stay around 45 and under, but again, feel free to explore on your own. Next, we've got transparency levels, active and inactive opacity. If we go ahead and change this to 1 and save, you can see that the opacity is fully opaque, whatever that word is. And if I set it back to 0.85, then once again, we have a little bit of transparency. And so you can change that based on active and inactive windows. If I go ahead and change my inactive opacity to 0, you can see that my window disappears, but you can still see the blur. So it's kind of nice. I actually kind of like that. But I'm going to go ahead and stay with 6.5. Next, we've got shadow settings. Enabled equals true. Go ahead and close this window. If you enable your shadows, you can enable the range, which is how far your shadow extends from your borders, and render power determines, I think that determines how sharp they are, basically how soft and sharp they are. This is a really good feature. You can also change the color of the shadow. So where this would be relevant is if you're like into the whole cyberpunk or like synthwave scene and stuff, and you like your vibrant neon colors, you can create more or less a neon aesthetic to your windows by creating vibrant borders as shown above, and then accenting those with vibrant shadows, and it'll give it a more of a neon soft glow to it, which is really cool. Last but not least, we've got blur settings. I would advise you really only mess with the size, at least to any extent. Like if you get too aggressive with passes, it gets pretty weird. If I set this to 8, it looks pretty much no different than having no opacity. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this fairly low, but then you can change the size to say something like 8, and it still stays relatively transparent, but you got so much blur in there that it allows you to focus a little more if you find it hard to focus if you can see too much of your background. So this covers aesthetics, guys, as best I can right now. I do apologize if it's starting to sound like I'm feeling a little rushed, but I have been doing this all day long and I'm starting to run out of juice, but I've got 2 more episodes to kick out, and I hope that we can get that done. So again, as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, corrections, anything like that, drop them in the comments section below. If you are finding any of this useful, I would really appreciate it if you hit that like button, let me and my kid know that I've done something right. If you have, anything you need, you let me know. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Take care and God bless.